keep us in chains by show of hands. Who else is sick and tired of the same 1%? Trying to keep us small, trying to keep us from getting out. Minimizing the struggles they've caused, saying we're not working hard enough.
We really should stop this fighting. Otherwise, we'll miss the fireworks.
There won't be any fireworks.
And here we go.
And welcome, everybody, to Someyach. I am the great and powerful King of Kings, Prince of all that is awesome, Derek. How are you today on this Monday, February 1st? Holy crap. February's here already. Just it still feels like January. Actually, it still feels like December, to be honest with you. I can't believe this year's going already as fast as it has been. But either way, I hope you enjoyed your weekend. I know mine was amazing. Had a nice, quiet weekend, and things are going along nicely, and I hope they are the same for you. So now we're into week 2 of our mind, body, and soul reinvention, I guess you could say. Because like I said last week and the week before that, you know, the show kind of lost a little bit of focus, talking to bands constantly, talking to comedians constantly, and lost the idea of mental health and mental well-being during that time period, which again was by design, but at the same time I didn't want to lose the focus of the show. So now we're refocusing. Bands and comedians and all that stuff is coming again. That's not, I'm not completely dumping that, because that's the whole heart of the show. A little bit of everything, you know. But now we're going to go ahead and start reincorporating therapists and authors and survivors and everything else like that on top of the bands and stuff like that. So again, this week will be no different. And then the following week, next week, we'll go ahead and get back to the bands and the music and the comedy and everything else in between. But for right now, let's just get our mind in check, because last year sucked. The first part of January was pretty shitty, and now going into February, it's a little iffy. So let's clear our mind, clear our thoughts, and just enjoy the ride. And that, again, is no different tonight, because tonight I have an author with me that has penned 39 children's books, and also has penned a lifestyle book, you know, talking about her battles with food addictions and so on and so forth. And we'll talk about all those things and more with my guest tonight, Miss Bracha Goetz. How are you?
Oh, great. Happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure, actually. You have made a heck of a career for yourself with, you know, targeting kids and, you know, writing just amazing children's books for them over the course of your career. What exactly inspired you to, you know, pretty much dedicate your career to that?
I try to, my children's books are unusual because they're spiritual books.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I try to write about really deep concepts that you wouldn't expect to be in a picture book. And I write the kind of books I wished I had as a child, because I wasn't brought up in a spiritual way. And I feel, well, you'll see in the conversation we have that, like, that's why I feel the addictions developed, because I was trying to fill something that was empty inside of me, but I didn't know what it was. So basically, I feel that if I can give children life skills and an understanding that they're spiritual beings from the beginning of their lives, then they will know how to enrich their lives all the way through. They'll have happiness skills. They'll know how to get deep pleasure in life, and they won't have to get stuck with addictions like that are really widespread, because I feel people have souls that are genuinely starving. And that's the basis for the addictions. So basically, I'm helping to fill children's souls from the beginning. That's what I love to do.
So your take on it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Your take on it is, because you weren't raised spiritually, that that's what kind of started the addictions for you?
Yeah, I didn't have the nourishment. My soul was craving nourishment, spiritual nourishment that it wasn't getting. So it tried to fill up. I believe that why we overeat is because food gives us pleasure and we want the pleasure to last, so we just keep overeating it. But it's really something else. It's a different emptiness inside that we're trying to fill. We want pleasure to last, and there's other ways to get pleasure to last. And that's what I'm exploring. That's what I'm sharing about what are ways to bring more lasting pleasure into our lives. Besides, because that's what we're trying to do with addictions. We're trying to get the pleasure that we experience, the fleeting pleasure that we get from an addictive substance. We are using that to keep the pleasure lasting. And a different way to do it is to bring more lasting pleasure into our lives.
Do you believe that lack of spirituality is the root of all addictions?
I know it's a wild thing to believe that, right? I once, I used to coordinate a Big Brother, Big Sister program, and they had an addiction specialist come in, and they were like, there were like 300 of us that were on the staff, and they asked who thinks there's a physical basis to addiction, who thinks it's an emotional thing, who thinks it's something spiritual. I was the only person in the spiritual corner, but I really believe it. I really believe that what we are spiritual beings housed in physical bodies for this existence. We're supposed to be in physical bodies. That's what we're here for, to interact with the world and find the spiritual sparks and uplift them, and also to elevate our physical beings to a more spiritual state. So I think that, yes, I really believe that what we are in essence are spiritual beings housed in bodies, and that's the basis for addictions, because we're not nourishing our spiritual beings enough. And so like the purpose of the pleasures in this world are really, the main purpose is to elevate our souls, but we get stuck on the sensory pleasure that it brings to us, which is just done for our delight. Like, it didn't have to be that way. It could have been we took a pill every day, like for our physical sustenance, but instead, like things were made to be beautiful and become the most beautiful colors right when they're ripe on the tree, and they to have a beautiful smell and a wonderful taste. So, like, all these things were made to be pleasurable. All the physical, natural pleasures were made to be pleasurable, but the purpose of that pleasure was something greater. It's to uplift our souls.
Because, see, I'm not a very spiritual person in any which way, shape, or form. I'm not a religious person. I'm someone that's, planted very firmly in science. And that's how I've always been. I was raised complete polar opposite of you. I was raised in a very strictly Catholic household.
Wow.
And
Wow.
As I got older, and I was even went to Catholic school. As I got older, and as my brain started doing work in itself, I realized, wait a second, there's something wrong here, and I began a spiritual journey. Once I left Catholic school and started going to public school, to figure out what spirituality and what religion really was, because I knew that what I was being taught was wrong, and I knew the things that they were telling me it felt like, to me, it was just straight up evil. I remember being a 14-year-old kid, 13 or 14, I can't remember. The year I left to go to middle school, so it was 7th grade that I left not elementary school, Catholic school, to go join regular middle school, and I got my ears pierced. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and rebel. I was Catholic school forever, now in public school, let me get my ears pierced. So then the following weekend, or a couple weekends later, whatever it was, time frame really doesn't matter, we go to my grandmother's church in Cocoa Beach, Florida. And Cocoa Beach is a very old town, for lack of a better word. And it's, primarily senior citizens, a lot of retirees, yada, yada, yada. But I go to this church filled with, people my grandmother's age. And the priest, my grandmother's age, he looked at me because we were sitting pretty close to the front. And he told me that I was going to hell because I defiled God's body. Because I put piercings in my ears. And at that point in time, I'm like, okay, there's something inherently wrong. I mean, he made me to have free will, but yet then you're going to damn me for using my free will. That doesn't make any sense at all. And if that priest could only see me now, I'd probably kill him with all the tattoos and everything else I've done to my body. But I digress. But either way, and because I've seen my dad suffer from addiction, of alcohol, my brother the same way. I've known many different people who've had some type of addiction. And it's from a scientific point of view, I mean, even food addiction can be linked to biology and a certain chemistry in yourself. Because the addiction gene is a real thing. Now, how it manifests within you can be different. It all depends on what your brain chemistry is and how things, work within you and what gives you pleasure. So, that's why some people who have the addiction gene are smokers and some are alcoholics and some are sex addicts and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It all depends. Even though I really don't think sex addicts is a thing, but that's my thing. But because I believe that while I kind of agree with you on the spirituality of things, I just think it's more internalized spirituality. So like that belief in yourself, that happiness within, can control that, that addiction. You know what I'm saying? It's like that, because like nobody in this world has the power to make yourself happy. Nobody can make you happy. The only person that can do that is yourself. And if you're not happy with yourself, that's what can open up that door. So it's more of a mental spirituality, I kind of believe. Do you follow what I'm saying along those lines? Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about something on a grander scale?
Well, let's see. I'm going to tell you about the pleasure ladder, and you can tell me if anything about it seems unscientific or doesn't make sense to your mind. You just give me feedback, whatever you see. Let me know if anything I'm saying seems to be a lie, or it just doesn't seem like reality to you.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you. So we can have a nice open debate among people who are state neighbors. I'm in Virginia, you're in Maryland. It's fantastic. So, I want to have a nice, honest debate because, let's go ahead and just put a pin in this for just one quick second. So my audience kind of understands here. Yes, we're here to talk about addiction and her food addiction and stuff like that in the book. However, at the same time, being that we're a mental health related show, addiction does correlate straight up with mental health. So I kind of want to get her perspective on things along with my perspective on things, and hopefully be able to shed some light on who you are as a person as you're driving to work this morning or on your way home from work, whatever. Therefore, you can take both ideals and hopefully be able to attach them to yourself or be able to apply both of them together. And hell, I might even learn something out of this whole thing too. So let's have this honest, polite, adult debate, and let's have some fun with it. So please tell me your pleasure ladder, and I'll be more than happy to interject as I see.
Okay, great. And I also want to tell you that I was also condemned to hell. I mean, people that met me when they heard I was Jewish, these people just came and told me, you are condemned to hell forever, So I'm just letting you know, I've been there too.
That's what you get for killing Jesus.
Yeah, that's. Oh, I also had an experience like that. I was in a Catholic church. When I was really young, and they were still doing this thing where at one point, everybody in the audience had to scream as it was part of the Easter thing. Everyone had to shout, "Kill the Jews! Kill the Jews!" This is what, and I'm like, well, I can't say these words.
When was this?
This was Easter. This was like an Easter type of thing they were talking about, and it was related to what you were saying. Yeah.
Wow, I've never heard of anything like that. That's crazy.
Oh, it was horrible. And there I was. Okay. So, anyway, back to this. Yeah. So, I understand. I totally understand why people put up a lot of defenses about certain things related to religion. I totally get that. Okay. So, here, this is something amazing that I learned. This is what turned my life around, really, when I heard from this rabbi in Israel that I was searching for the purpose to life. This is what I was searching for, feeling that life was really meaningless. And I really didn't see why I needed to continue living. I didn't really get that. That's where I was at, where everything seemed gray and there were no morals left in my life. Like, it didn't matter what I did. That's the place I was at. And I was always wondering, what is the purpose? I couldn't believe, like, we get up each day to eat, to go to work, to make money, to eat, to go to work, to make money. What is this all for? What's it about? So this rabbi, he's no longer alive, but what he said blew my mind, and it just didn't seem like something, wow, I'd ever heard before, that the purpose of life is to experience the greatest pleasure possible. What? Like, I never heard, like religion had seemed like it was, like you described it, like restrictive, like this, it's not about experiencing the greatest pleasure possible. That opened my mind. And then the description of the pleasure ladder, what it has five, there are 5 levels to the pleasure ladder. And these 5 levels, they correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. This is ancient mystical wisdom that I'm sharing. This is nothing like coming off the top of my head or coming off the top of this rabbi's head or anything. This is like ancient stuff. And it's fascinating because it's stuff that, like, I went to Harvard and, like, they were doing research there about happiness and stuff like that. This is stuff they're just discovering now, but it's already in this ancient mystical wisdom about, like you were talking about, what brings happiness in life and stuff like that. So, like, what I'm going to say now is stuff that your intuition already knows, but this pleasure ladder is just a really clear way of understanding where our souls are at, the 5 levels, and what brings pleasure to those 5 levels of our soul. So on the lowest level are all the physical pleasures, all the pleasures that we get with our senses. And what's amazing, like I was saying, is the world didn't have to be designed in this beautiful way. I could have just taken a pill, right? But instead, the world was designed to be a delight to our senses. And so, but what we forget, we get lost in the physicality, and we forget that the raising our physical selves is just to elevate our souls. So music, like, for instance, because I think you love music too. Let's say a person is overeating. If they turn on music and they start dancing or stretching, they no longer feel like finishing up a bag of potato chips, for instance. Why? Because they're getting another wonderful physical pleasure. Or let's say they go out into nature, they're climbing a mountain, they're feeling the breeze, they're feeling the sunshine. They don't feel like overeating the box of chocolate chip cookies then, because they're getting another different physical pleasure. The world was designed to elevate our souls. And these physical pleasures, like when we eat something natural like this, if we eat it mindfully, we actually feel our souls elevating, in addition to it being a pleasurable taste, So all of these natural pleasures are in the world to elevate our souls. So, in other words, if a person is overeating, they can substitute a different pleasure. And so this concept is to fill a person's life with more joy, not less, in order to overcome addictions. Add more joy to one's life. So going up the pleasure ladder, what's on the second level of pleasure is love. And love is not, again, at every level here, it's all an empowering kind of pleasure. We can bring it into our own lives. Love here doesn't mean waiting for anybody to love us. It means focusing on the virtues of another person, appreciating somebody else. And that's something, like you said, we do with our minds. We could do that at any moment. You could think about your grandmothers, whoever, and just thinking about qualities that you appreciate about your grandmother. And suddenly you have a feeling of love inside of you. That's how we bring love into our lives. And also we bring more connection into our lives, because like overeating, also we do that when we feel alienated and alone and bored, stressed, whatever. We feel separate. So each level of pleasure brings more connection into our lives. On the lowest level with another object, and on the second level now with another being, we are connecting. So that's the second level. Should I keep going up?
Yeah, please go.
Okay, so up on the third level is what's a greater pleasure than is meaning, bringing meaning into our lives, doing something meaningful, like doing your podcast to help other people, to to help people healing from mental help people heal with their mental health. And this is all bringing meaning. When you're doing something meaningful, also we don't feel like we don't need to be doing something addictive at that time, because we are filled with meaning, and that gives our life pleasure. What could be higher than that? When we're doing something creative. Here we're tapping into the creative flow of the universe. We're adding a piece of ourselves into the world. That gives us even more pleasure. So you could do something meaningful and creative. That's like tremendous pleasure. And 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 we don't stay at that level for a long period of time. In this world, we just get glimpses of being in creativity. We would burn out, but it's an awesome zone where we're in a creative state, we don't even feel like eating or sleeping. Sometimes we're just having so much pleasure being creative. And what's the highest level is transcendence, which is, again, it's just connecting to everybody and everything, connecting to the source of everything and seeing how we're all connected. It's when the veil of separation is lifted and we can see how we're all connected. And so each level, like I showed, it brings more of a sense of connection, a greater pleasure. And also, what gets us from one rung to another and what gives us pleasure at every level is gratitude, because that's what elevates our soul. The Like when we feel a sense of entitlement, like of course I should have this orange or whatever in my life. But no, if I relate thank you to the source of whoever created this, the source of all the goodness in my life, then I feel a sense of gratitude. It changes everything, the whole perspective about life. So it's gratitude. And you see, when you focus on another, you feel gratitude toward that person, and meaning you want to give to the world when you feel a positive sense of gratitude. So it's gratitude that gets us into this wonderful state of pleasure. That's really the ticket. It's the ticket to ride up each level on the pleasure ladder. Oh, and let me say one more thing. All these pleasures nourish our soul, and I feel they're all needed in order to heal from addictions, but it could be it's not enough. Because if we have so much garbage piled on top of our souls, then our light can't even shine. We have to nourish our souls from the inside, but we also have to get rid of garbage that's piled on top. We need to heal in both directions. Um, so I feel both is needed. We need to get rid of garbage, but we also need to be nourishing our souls in order for our souls to shine again.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing there that isn't also science based. So I have no arguments with anything you just said because it's 100% true. But I would almost, maybe not. You know, but I think before we can have, hold on, let me try to put this in my perspective here. Hold on. The only one that I kind of have and this is not a science thing, this is just a personal thing. The only thing that I think should be subtracted from that is maybe love. And let me tell you why. Because if we're not satisfying our own life, and we haven't reached, or maybe I would put it at number 5, like the last one. Because if we don't have meaning for ourselves, if we're not centered and we don't have all these other things, part of us who we are, then love is not even possible because we're not truly loving ourselves. We can't love ourselves until we love somebody else. I mean, we can't love somebody else until we love ourselves. And I feel like the other 4 steps would be more important because that last one not only affects yourself, but it affects others as well. Does that make sense? And that's, yeah, like I said, I mean, that was just a personal thing for me. And if you have something different to say about that, please let me know because I'm just giving you my opinion.
Which last one did you mean? Which?
Like you gave the rungs of the happiness. So I would say, in my opinion, I would like move be the last rung of the ladder would be love, and not second like you had it in there. Because like I just said, we can't until all the other things are met. In my opinion, we can't truly love at all because we're not loving ourselves. If I'm loving you, for example, and I don't have meaning in my life, then I can't truly love you because I'm focused on myself again because there's nothing else meaningful in my life. So if that first rung I hit and then the second rung I hit is love, but then that third rung I stop at because I have no meaning in my life. You know what I'm saying? Then the love is kind of null and void because I haven't put the true meaning of myself in who I am yet. So I would need to have that before I could ever truly love. Does that make sense?
Well, the definition of love, it's a very basic type of definition here. It just involves appreciating something about someone else. It's a way to heal. And like in 12 steps, when people do this, they have a what's it called? It's not called a buddy, a sponsor. A sponsor. And you learn to appreciate things about that person, and the support that you get from being in a 12 steps group, for instance. It's taking you out of yourself, and you are starting to appreciate things about other people. That's giving you pleasure into your life. It's this, maybe the word again, like religion, it has like some defenses built into it, so I don't mean love in the sense of this, very deep relationship. It's more of a healing thing that brings a person pleasure, brings a person out of themselves to start appreciating things about other people. And so a person doesn't feel alone in the world. Like they can, it changes a person and gives them a basic level of pleasure that you kind of need to heal. So that's why I think it's that at that lower level, it's just the sense of stepping out of yourselves and being able to look at another person and value other people. And you can do that. And if we just do that with little elements about them, that helps to heal a person, and it helps them to love themselves more too, in being able to reflect those good qualities that they recognize in another person. Yeah. It's more like a mechanism. It helps with, it's having gratitude for other people. As you become a more grateful person, you become a more loving person. So it does help in building loving relationships, and you are nurturing yourself by focusing on what you appreciate about other people. Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, my bad. That's
There
my
you
fault.
go.
And again, I completely appreciate what you're saying. It's just that for like my own journey through, being bipolar and suicidal and, my divorce and everything else like that, I've had to, really reconnect with myself and find who I am and find everything else about myself before I could even begin to appreciate anybody else.
Um, I Yes, I totally hear you. And I'm sure there were glimmers of just appreciating somebody for something that helped you in your healing. It's just part of, feeling isolated in the world. That's, why a person doesn't really want to keep on living. But it's those connections, as we build connections, that make us want to be in the world and appreciate it. So, um, I just want to say that, how do you gain that love for yourself that you want to keep living? It is by all these things. It is by developing the connection, the appreciation, the gratitude for the things in your life. I remember when I had a really low time after a trauma, I would just stare at a tree. I thought, there's still something good in the world. There's a tree. I know that the world still has some goodness, Like that's all that I could trust at that point, because I couldn't trust the world, but
Hmm.
I could trust there was a tree. I mean, this is how it is when we get really low. We need to be grateful for something, and just increase that. I think that's what helps to heal us. That's what helps to nourish our souls. So I don't know if it's just terminology difference, but I think we're on the same page about this basically. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I think we are, but at the same time, I'm not 100% sure either. Because like I said, I mean, I just when before I started this show, and other than being a family man, my purpose in life was about pleasing others. And my, get up, go to work, do a 9 to 5, be that person, that the world expects me to be the man that my dad expected me to be, my mom expects me to be, and my wife and everybody else in between. And that wasn't who I was because I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a meaning. Yeah, I was a great I come home every day and my purpose is to take care of my kids, but outside of my family, who the hell am I? I'm just a robot. And when I started this show gave my whole life meaning, and everything about it just kind of, once it started happening, everything just kind of fell into place. And I wasn't happy with who I was. I wasn't happy with, anything else. I didn't truly love myself or like myself. I still don't sometimes. But I don't feel that I appreciated anyone fully until I found that true meaning in myself, because I just didn't really truly care, because I'm like, why, if I'm not happy, why should anyone else be? And
Yeah,
you're telling me how to live my life, and I can't find that. Why should I even appreciate anything you've done for me if you're not letting me be myself?
I see.
And that's kind of why I'm saying what I'm saying, because I don't think I ever truly appreciated my wife until, we've separated now, but, until I found my purpose in life. And, until, everything else. Because, again, once I was able to find my own purpose, I was like, wait a second, now I'm not the person she wanted me to be, because, she wanted me just to be that 9 to 5, go work, have a secure life, and blah, blah, blah. She didn't want me to be in the entertainment industry. She didn't want me to, to work for myself and all this other stuff. But that's what made me happy. So, I found out I actually had less appreciation, because now the things that I want in life aren't the same things that she wanted. And again, I was so focused on pleasing everybody else, and because I was doing what everybody told me to do. And then, so I had no appreciation for anybody else until I found that meaning for myself. And now,
Okay, I get it.
yeah, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
I hear. And I'm not saying that you have to go in this order. at all.
Okay.
I'm talking about higher levels of pleasure. And you skipped right up to meaning and creativity, and that gave your life, the sustenance that you needed, the nourishment that you were craving. So that totally can happen. I think I'm just explaining that these are considered to be um, increasing levels of pleasure. So you went right up to that level,
Yeah.
and that really nourished your soul. That's how I'm saying it. Yeah, that's how I see what you're saying. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said, it was just one of those odd situations where, I at that point, I thought I had everything else. I thought I had love, and I thought I had the first one. It was like, but wait a second, but I don't have anything else. It's like, I don't have that creative outlet anymore. I don't have, meaning. I don't have anything I used to have, and now I'm just like, I'm a drone.
I
And
hear.
yeah,
I think that happened to me too, now that I think about it, because when I was so miserable, it was getting the meaning to my life that changed everything. So, and that was before I met my husband or anything. I'm just saying that really gave that's what got my soul shining. That nourishment I was craving, what's the purpose to life, and that I was finally living a meaningful life. So, yeah, and you can, and we do, like, under a starry sky at night, and you feel that sense of transcendence. And we don't live in that state of bliss and awe. We're not in that state continuously. But those moments, we keep them for our whole lives. We can always go back to that starry night. It's something that we keep within us, and it nourishes us always. That sense of awesomeness that we've experienced at one point or another. You know what I'm saying? I
I
don't know.
got you.
So,
No, I got what you're saying. So
yes.
in theory, you could take those, if you're wanting to kind of reevaluate your spiritual journey within yourself, or the actual spiritual world, however you want to look at it, whether you consider your mind a spirit like I do, you know you could take that ladder and kind of rearrange it to fit your needs, is what you're saying, and that's okay.
Well, the ladder's supposed to explain what brings more lasting pleasure, what brings greater pleasure. This is the this is the levels of higher pleasures in life. And it doesn't mean that you can't experience transcendence when you're an addict. I mean, for sure. No, when you're involved in addiction, when you're heavily involved in addiction, you can still be under that sky and have that sense of transcendence. Um, and right that moment you might not be using, or you might be, but but it's still it's something that you can go to all different levels. This is just kind of a map of what brings more lasting pleasure. So if it's helpful to people to have this, then they can use it to help them overcome addictions by bringing these different levels of pleasure into their life at any moment, whether it's even a horizontal switch. It just basically explains the mechanism behind why it works. Why does it work that when we turn on music, we don't feel like eating more potato chips? I mean, why? What is it doing? It's because in my words, it's uplifting your soul, and it's giving you the nourishment that you were craving, the lasting pleasure. We overeat because we want the pleasure to keep lasting. Like, I was talking to another guy. He said he was just going through the pizza. He was finishing the whole box of pizza when someone knocked on his door. A neighbor, they needed him to help with something. So he went out, he helped them, he came back in, he didn't feel like eating the pizza anymore. And he wondered why. And because then when I had explained this, he said, now I know why. I did something meaningful. Like, I was helping this guy. I no longer felt alone, and I didn't feel like finishing the box of pizza anymore, because like my soul was nourished then. There was no more need to keep going. I wasn't physically hungry. I mean, when we overeat, it has nothing to do with being physically hungry. It's to feed the emptiness inside. So I'm calling it my soul, but you could call it what you want to. But you know what? That's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah, and I mean, whether you believe in the spiritual version of a soul, or just a metaphysical type of soul, we all have one. I mean, and that soul is, that of appreciation when you helped your child graduate high school. I mean, that feeling of, accomplishment and stuff like that, that's your soul. And so, regardless of what you consider your soul, it's they all does the same thing. So I believe you're 100% right, because, whether it's crack and cocaine and alcohol, or whatever, heroin, or food, you're doing it to fulfill a need in your life that you can't find, so you're using it to drown out the pain, and you're using it to, I want to go ahead and as a substitution for something else.
Yes, and why not bring more joy? Because like to break a habit, it takes like 400 times, 400 repetitions to build a new habit. But if we do it joyfully, like in 10 times, 10 repetitions could do it. So like it's a different perspective, is by adding more joy into our lives. It helps us to overcome addictions, to overcome bad habits. And I just think it's a really important perspective to have. The more joy we could add to our lives, the easier it is to overcome the bad habits or addictions that we have. Oh, your sound is
I
off.
did it again. That's my New Year's resolution, to stop doing that. And I haven't stopped doing it yet, so I've already broken my New Year's resolution. Because it just gets loud in here sometimes, and I just mute myself. Because the air conditioning will kick on and fans are blowing, so I sometimes just forget to turn it back on. But anyway, how much of what you're saying and have written in the book, and what you believe as far as this kind of stuff goes, is based on your religion, based on the stuff that you're talking about? How much of that comes from being Jewish, or coming from that faith?
Like the thing is, I was brought up Jewish in a cultural sense, but I didn't even know that it was spiritual. That's what I'm saying. So it wasn't until I started reading this really ancient wisdom in depth that I learned all this amazing stuff. So it's there, but it's not, most Jewish people wouldn't know about it. I have a feeling. I don't think so, where most Jewish people are not aware of this stuff, but it is there in the ancient mystical writings, So I feel really grateful that I learned it, because it really changed my life to have this understanding and perspective. And also um, like another wild thing that you brought up here is like this rabbi explained, and this is again based on this ancient teachings, is that he explains that the opposite of pleasure is not pain. Because you were talking about the opposite of pleasure is comfort. The reason we get involved with addictions is to bring comfort to our lives, but comfort is the opposite of pleasure. It doesn't bring us pleasure. It brings us this fleeting numbness kind of it. And so in order to, pain can actually be a part of pleasure, like in giving birth, it's a part of pleasure, or climbing a mountain. And in many times in our Western society, we are taught that discomfort is something to be avoided. But really, discomfort is a part of challenges and growth and pleasure. Ultimately, it's a part of pleasure, because if we're not experiencing discomfort, like I just have, we lift weights, it creates some discomfort. But like, if we lift a heavy weight, it creates much more discomfort. But like that's how we build more muscles. We build more muscles with the heavier weights, with the greater challenges, and these greater challenges ultimately can bring us greater pleasure. But like if a child has gone through abuse or neglect in their childhood, the overwhelming challenges can be too much, and it just creates garbage. I mean, And that's what the title of my memoir is, Searching for God in the Garbage. So it creates so much garbage that we have to get rid of. In other words, so some challenges can be so great that they don't at all feel pleasurable, and so we 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 also need to be. That's why a person that has suffered, especially in childhood, needs to bring a ton of joy into their lives through all these lasting pleasures, in addition to getting rid of all the garbage that may have been put on them, especially if it was trauma in childhood. Um, so I don't know if I just explained myself there.
No, you definitely did.
Okay.
But I would argue that some of the garbage that we've put on ourselves and some of the stuff that we've had to fight as a child and through our childhood could be exactly what you're saying, to seek out. I mean, like the religious aspect of things, the spirituality of things. Like some of that stuff is dumped on us in a negative way. For example, like what I went through and was told I was going to hell, or being raised in a strictly Christian household and then coming out as gay. Which I'm going to go ahead and make a quick right turn for a second here, go completely off topic, and kind of, because this is something I want to kind of get a perspective on, because of your spiritual faith, of what your faith is. And I wasn't intending on doing this, but when I just said it, I'm like, wait a second, I have the perfect opportunity. For many, 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 many years, even through today, I'm sure someone right now in this world is speaking this right now. Being gay is against the laws of God. Okay? That law of God comes from the Old Testament, which is the Jewish book, which is also known as the Torah, or whatever you want to call it. But yet, the people that hold that book at its highest, which is the Older Testament, which, again, is your book, and you guys hold that to its highest power, and the Christians hold the New Testament to the higher power, they use that one line, and that only one line in that entire book, because the rest of Leviticus is harmful and, like, bad, but we won't go into that. But anyway, why is it that the Jewish faith has always been pretty accepting of other cultures, especially the LGBTQ community, when Christians can't seem to accept that if you guys have moved on from these different things, like, because another thing in Leviticus is stone your neighbor if they work on the Sabbath. We don't do that anymore either. But I digress. You follow what I'm saying? Why is it that the religion that holds that book in its highest regard, why is it that you guys don't use that to condemn anybody, but yet the Christians do? Do you have a thought on that?
I think there's a lot of different Christian groups. Some do and some don't.
Correct. Yes, I'm not grouping them all together. But
Right.
but you see my question though.
Yeah, but again, I think we're just grouping too many people. There's certain people that feel certain. It's very hard to generalize about it. There's all different views. So
I get it. It just because I'm a huge advocate for the LGBTQ community, and I'm a huge advocate of mental health and other things like that, and all of it ties. I feel a lot of the trauma that we carry with us on a day-to-day basis has to do with someone else's teachings of spirituality to us. And, we were taught for so long that this is how it needs to be, this is how it needs to be, this is how it needs to be. And, nothing else matters, everything else is bad. And then as we grow up, we realize, wait a second, there's some good points over here, there's some good points over here. And then it ends up traumatizing us, or some of it is, to the point where I went through, and some people have it even worse than what I had it when I, because there's a lot more to that story, obviously, but how. Let me try to put this into a question here.
But let me just say, I think that the dogmatic attitude is disturbing to you. I think that's what you're describing. So I think to have an openness to what 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 can be acceptable to you in terms of spirituality, what parts make sense to you, and not to worry about all the dogma. And I don't know, I mean, like, there's all different kinds of people in this world too, just like there's all different types of religions. So
Yeah.
looking for the connection, looking for what do we have in common. And I think that's part of accepting of all people too. That's part of accepting what's so amazing about each individual. So I think
Yeah, but appreciating all people, I just can't do that. Because there's too many people out there that have hate in their heart and hate in their mind and hate in their mouth. And I have no appreciation. I don't care if they're a Nobel Peace Prize winning person. If you have spouted hate, in any which way, shape, or form, then you don't deserve any type of admiration from me. That's my opinion.
sometimes hate is necessary. Like, should we hate Adolf Hitler? I mean, there are people that should be hated. What can I say? I mean, like, there are really, murderers in the world that need to be hated. But
Absolutely.
in general, we can find things to love about most people. It just helps us. It just helps us to be more open and have more love in our lives, and less anger. I don't know. I think it's just a good way to live. We don't have to focus, and we get to choose who we want to hang out with and spend our time with, and we don't have to be with people that, are upsetting to us. So that's good. There's thank God so many people in this world. So
Oh, yeah, and like I said,
yeah.
I'm just bringing this kind of stuff up because I overanalyze everything, and I look past the surface of everything, and I try to find the heart and soul in
That's
everything,
that's
and
great.
it drives me batty. Like, I can never take anything at surface value. I'm like, oh, they're being nice. What's the catch here? Or, oh, they're being mean. What's going on there? And it's like I will jump right in head first and try to say, okay, let's figure this out.
That's it's a sign of intelligence. It's a great thing. That's how we need to be in the world. Questioning. I mean, that's what we're here for. It's good. It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, it drives me insane sometimes because I overanalyze it, and even after I find the answer, I'm like, no, that's too easy. It's got to be more to it. Um, and and if I discover that it is too easy, then that's like, okay, I got to find something else that's more complicated for me to think about. Um,
But
but
I think there's a perspective to me of thinking that this world was actually designed for our pleasure. That is an amazing thing that most people don't recognize. Like, why does a person have a child? What does a person want for their child? A person wants their child to experience the greatest pleasure possible in life. That's really it. So just the thought, just imagining that maybe we were created, maybe we were really put here in order to experience the greatest pleasure possible, that to me is mind blowing. We don't normally think like that. And that changed my whole perspective. Many people feel guilty experiencing pleasure. This changes that whole perspective. And let's say a person had a difficult childhood, then they definitely don't feel like they deserve pleasure. This changes that perspective too, to know that, yeah, and it's not a sense of like, I deserve to have this and this and this. No, the pleasure comes from having gratitude. So the most simplest things in life can bring you pleasure. And that I think that it just changes a person's life to have a much more enriching life, and it enables a person's soul to really be able to shine in this world so that they could do as much as they possibly can, use their human potential to really feel fulfilled in life.
That's actually pretty profound. And you know, it applies to everyone, regardless of your, you know, your spiritual beliefs or anything else like that. I mean, there's much to be said about everything you just said, and so I appreciate you saying that, because it's the truth. You know, we've got to, you know, before we can ever, like I said, before we can ever move on and truly be happy in our personal life, we need to be happy within ourselves, and we cannot be doing that by, you know, constantly filling the needs that are being met in our life with addictive things, you know, whether, again, you know, coke or heroin or cigarettes or alcohol or anything else. The only way we're going to ever truly be happy in life is this, if we are happy within ourselves and don't have those things to depend on, those dependencies. Because I think you're 100% right. You know, the meaning of life is to, you know, fulfill the greatest pleasure out there. And regardless of what that is for you, it exists. It might be, you know, getting to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, it might be, you know, writing a book, you know, that I don't care if it sells one book. I wrote it, and that's all that matters. Whatever the case might be, you know, it exists for you, and find it.
Yes. You know, it could be as simple as recognizing that we're breathing right this moment, recognizing, like, take this breath, we're taking the breath in that all the vegetation is giving to us, and we're giving out what the vegetation needs. And like, it could be as simple as being thankful for all the diseases that we don't have this moment.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as being thankful for all the body parts that are working right now in our bodies. You know, and it could be a person could experience all these levels of pleasure in jail. If we have our minds, like you say, we can reach all these levels of pleasure even if we're imprisoned, because if our minds are not incarcerated. And that's what addictions are. Addictions make us a slave to the substance that we're addicted to, but we can free ourselves by using our souls to enrich them, and using our minds to experience all these pleasures. Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That's amazing. Brock, I do want to go ahead and thank you. It's been a real pleasure talking with you this evening. You've given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure you've given a lot of other people to think about as well. For everyone listening, to learn more about her, the links for everything that she has done is in the bio of this podcast and the video. So take a look and check it out. Pick up the book about addictions, or just buy, you know, one of her many different children's books to read your children at night. There's lots of different options out there, and it's all very brilliant and very well put together. And I love the way your mind works, because it's quite fascinating, and it's really, 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 and you know, you're an intelligent woman and I really do appreciate this conversation.
Thank you so deeply. I know you meant that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Again, guys, all the links for Bracha is in the description of the video and the podcast. Click those links, take a look, buy a couple of her books, and enjoy. But until tomorrow, guys, stay happy, stay healthy, and as always, stay heavy. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. Peace out.